Can you imagine trying to win a battle for months, but then when you finally win, it's labeled as the worst beat battle ever? Well, I don't have to.
But let's keep it moving. Fifth right now, BP Bananas. Let's go.
Round one.
How does it sound more like weed than the sample? 5-point deduction for bongos.
Hold up, what's this? Okay, so I've received mostly positive comments from our community regarding this beat, but I do feel the need to address this controversy here. One person even sent me some very direct criticism in my SoundCloud messages, but we've kept our discussion civil over the past few days. So I will attempt to protect their identity by paraphrasing the message and replacing key terms with relevant basketball terms. I'ma keep it real. Stop running and dunking every game. You're ruining it for a lot of talented people just to get a ring. It's a bad look on Adam Silver, the NBA, and most importantly, yourself. If you can't shoot from beyond the arc, so be it. Just don't cheat your way to winning a championship. At this point, some people could consider it unsportsmanlike, but whatever. Should I tweet this? Probably not, but if you replace the quoted words with phrases relevant to my situation, and I understand that I am not nearly as talented as Giannis, many more people would agree with it. But before you formulate your opinion, allow me to tell my story. Did I make similar beats over the past few months? Yes. Using a unique analytical approach, I was able to win a gift despite my shortcomings as a producer. I've been dedicated to music production for about 7 months. I started using LMMS in December, and I got a 90-day trial of Ableton Live 10 in January. Once that trial expired, I used another email to get a 90-day trial of Ableton Live 11. I joined the Kenny Beats community in late March, and ever since, I've been participating every week in the battles. My primary goal was to prove to all the new producers here that even people like us have a chance of placing within the top 10. But I knew that going toe-to-toe with experienced producers would be of no avail. So I needed to develop a distinctive style that is unique to me and a strategic approach to battling. Here was my mission. 1. Test the waters until I stumble upon a style unique to me that places in the top quartile on the leaderboard. 2. Experiment exclusively using this style to find out what the community enjoys. This experiment will conclude on July 19th, 2021, the last Monday before my second trial ends. 3. Use the music of others as influences to make my beats more unique and engaging. Step 3 probably requires the least amount of explanation, so I'll start with that. The soundtracks of A Short Hike, composed by Mark Sparling, and Going Under, composed by Feasley, are my favorite video game soundtracks. So even if you hate me, you will still probably enjoy it if you choose to check it out. These composers have shaped my identity as a musician greatly, and one thing I like about this experiment is that I am able to ensure that if I made a breakdown of any beat made during the experimentation period, I would be able to shout out these amazing musicians. Alright, it's time for me to whip out the spreadsheet. My experiment started on May 3rd, when I got 11 votes. From there, I was to experiment for over 2 months. Some may argue that my approach is the opposite of experimenting. These people might claim that beat battle experimentation involves trying completely new things every week. The thing is that my definition of experiment may differ from theirs. To me, an experiment involves controlled variables and experimental variables. Optimally, there would be only one experimental variable, as using multiple would mean that the cause of a change in the dependent variable, in this case the number of votes or percentile, cannot be accurately determined by data alone. However, since I had a limited time frame to complete this experiment, I did change multiple things per week for quicker but less conclusive data collection. As you can see, my controlled variable is my Latin percussion setup, and the experimental variables are everything else to the right of it. Those to the left of the gap are things that influence my decisions during the experiment, and those to the right are factors that I looked at when analyzing the success of my last beat after the fact. Some of you may be wondering whether this experiment is legal, and so was I. So I asked in Beat Battle chat whether my strategy broke any rules, and the responses I got confirmed my belief that what I was doing was not illegal. I even mentioned how my strategy shared traits with people who start their submissions before the battle starts. But neither responder said anything about the morality of my strategy, so I assumed that it wasn't a big deal.
You're an idiot.
Damn right I am. People told me that my gift should have been reserved for a producer who is actually hardworking and talented, and labeled me as lazy for using similar loops week to week. If by loops they are referring to audio loops, I believe that there is a misconception that I need to clear up. I agree that having every loop ready to be placed at the start of the battle is a dirty strategy, but you will see in the beat breakdown that there are no audio tracks. This is a MIDI-only beat breakdown. I'm not sure if that changes anyone's opinion, but I just wanted to clarify. I believe that music production, like many other things, requires memory and knowledge as well as intuition. There is no punishment for studying for the SAT to appear smarter than colleges. Therefore, working hard and focusing on the memory side of music production to make up for a lack of musical intuition is not immoral, in my opinion. Do the Oakland Athletics not deserve their 20-game win streak because they use analytics to acquire players that scouts viewed as inferior? So if I use analytics to get on base instead of swinging for the fences every week, I would expect people to attempt to understand my approach before comparing it to conventional methods. One could argue that my methodology does not require as much talent as conventional approaches, but my methods are certainly not lazy. People have claimed that my approach gives me an unfair advantage over more talented producers. Did Trinidad and Tobago have an unfair advantage over Mexico by parking the bus in the CONCACAF Gold Cup? I don't think so. This is because playing an extremely defensive style has both advantages and disadvantages. To put it simply, parking the bus allows for a formulaic approach to mitigating your opponent's attacking threats and can keep the score close. On the other hand, this strategy limits the amount of attacking chances for your team and can be ruined by a single defensive error. One should weigh the advantages and disadvantages of a strategy before choosing whether it should be utilized. Let's apply this logic to my strategy. The benefits are that I can store specific information both in my head and on paper for when the battle starts. I can use feedback specific to my previous week's beat on the current week's beat, and the probability of dropping far down the leaderboard is lowered. The drawbacks of my methodology are that I have a lack of flexibility if I am sticking to my experiment, as I cannot do anything if the sample doesn't fit well with my beat. The probability of going up many spots is unlikely, and the experimental process is extremely tedious and demoralizing. Compare this to a strategy where a producer prepares multiple beats before the battle and does not begin from scratch at the start of the allotted time frame. This producer has a lot more flexibility, as they can choose the beat that would fit best with the sample, and if they fail one week, they can prepare a completely new beat for the next battle. To summarize, starting a beat before the battle is an unfair strategy, but my strategy is not, since it has more disadvantages to balance out the advantages. I'm not sure if my critics truly understand that my methodology may not even give me much of a strategic advantage at all. According to my data, which represents a relatively stable approach, the R-squared value when looking at the correlation between the number of participants and percentile is about 0.557. This means that only about 56% of the change in percentile is caused by a change in the number of participants. The remaining 44% of the change is caused by other factors like adjustments between weeks, differences in energy and stress levels, and randomness regarding the number of plays during voting and the number of votes. Even a completely stable approach where no adjustments are made besides sample usage would not have an R-squared value close to 1, because all of the other factors still have an impact. Furthermore, even though the quality of the top 10 has been generally decreasing over the last few months, I believe that the quality of the middle 50% of the leaderboard increases weekly, since many producers are trying to break into the upper quartile in the top 10. This factor also has an impact on percentile. There's really no evidence to prove that a conventional approach is objectively worse than mine in terms of winning chances. This is because the chance of a large jump into the top 10 is much higher using a standard approach. I would compare my approach to betting on green over and over again at a roulette table. Nobody cares if it loses many times in a row. It's supposed to do that. But people do get mad if it wins earlier than expected. However, betting on green is not objectively better or worse, at least not by much, than betting on red or black. Okay, I think I've given everyone enough metaphors, so let's go back to the day of the battle. It's the last trial of the experiment. Two of the best producers in the game right now are judging. The sample comes from Wii Sports, one of the most iconic video games of all time. How will I seize this opportunity under immense pressure? Welcome to a moment in history.
Did you just take a triangle solo in my beat battle? Hey, what the fuck is this?
There's another question I should answer before proceeding further. Was I attempting to troll with my submission? No. I had no idea that people would laugh so much at my beat. But let's run it back for a second. Do I know you or something? No disrespect to other winners, but there was a former winner and 2 troll beats in the top 10 as well. So why am I your only target? I understand that the beat battles are a meritocratic system, but the beauty of any competition is that the usage of various methodologies can give anyone a chance. If the purpose of the battles is to help producers develop, and different producers learn in different ways, why are you insisting that only one developmental strategy is allowed to succeed? If I find myself in the top 10 due to a well-executed approach, I would never pull my beat because I believe that I'm not a top 10 producer out of hundreds. And I would never expect any other producer to pull their beat for this reason either, because I believe that upset victories can make a contest more entertaining. I don't think you ever reached out to me after trashing me in the chat, but we can change that. I can see that you're not subscribed, so if you're watching this, hop into one of these feedback channels, drop something, and then at me, and then I'll give you feedback, and then I can drop something I've been working on, and then you can give me feedback. But even before you try and reach out, I have some advice for you anyway. Your username says you have no life, but if you ever thought about starting, how about you stop being salty all the time, and how about you So first off, get gifted a sub. I already messed this one up because I've been renewing my subscription for the last few months. The second step is to get a free DAW or a trial version. As you can see, my trial was running out when I recorded this on Tuesday, July 20th. Step 3. Get the Spitfire BBC Symphony Orchestra plugin in Spitfire Labs. For the orchestra plugin, you have to sign up for it and then wait a few weeks to get it for free. And then, compete in the battles. Let me show you how I did this. Here are the tempo blocks. I put some reverb and 2 EQs on it and panned it all the way to the left. This is what it sounds like. Here are the bongos. I EQ'd them and panned them to the right. This is the open and muted triangle part, and is panned to the left. This is my kick. It has some overdrive in addition to the reverb and the EQ. And this is the clap. It's a default sound that I pan 50 left and 50 right. The shaker sits in the background and is panned the same way. At the key change, I add this part, which is the bell of the ride cymbal and is panned right. And this cuica is panned left. Now let's talk about the percussion solos. The first solo is the triangle with the castanet, and the panning switches from left to right multiple times. As you can see, the castanet mostly plays in regular intervals to fill in a lot of the empty spaces in the triangle part. Moving on, we have the bongo solo. The final solo is the tempo block solo. The bongos join in the final phrase before everything else kicks in again. Okay, so this group contains the orchestral sounds that I use at the beginning. This is the spiccato cello. I made the notes shorter so they would punch more. This is the legato or long cello, and it sounds like this. Here is a deep bass drum that already has a lot of reverb naturally built into it. And this is the choir from Spitfire Labs, and here the long notes naturally crescendo. This is the xylophone. I panned it 33 left and 33 right. It's not very loud, but it helps fill out the middle high range. And here are the notes for the other two xylophone parts. This is my Rhodes sound from Ableton Electric. I added some chorus, auto pan, amp, and cabinet in addition to the standard reverb and EQ, and then panned it 25 left and 25 right. And the other parts? If you couldn't tell by now, I don't really use synths that much, so when I find a sound I like, I latch onto it. This is actually part of a sample from the June 28th battle, which was the fan sample. I put some reverb and EQ on it, and it sounds like this. Here is the bass. The audio effects are similar to that of the Rhodes, except that I used a bass amp instead of the clean amp. And there's also this passage. This is an 808 that I found when I was figuring out how to make beats on GarageBand for iPhone. Ironically, it is not a good 808. Its purpose is to double the bass line and give it a bit more depth. And if you were wondering, this is what it sounds like on its own. Finally, for this section, we have the pink noise. Now, I'm not sure that pink noise and static are the same thing, but it's close enough for me. Here, we have the main usage of the sample that I wanted people to hear. I put 3 EQs in this one. It changes a little after the key change. And then I took a single chord from the beginning of the sample and repeated it like this. Here, I took one of the piano chords from the sample. And here, I took another chord and shortened the notes to make it more staccato. Okay, so after I made all that, I had some time remaining, so I used YouTube to MP3 to convert a short Wii Sports boxing video so I could get some additional samples. There's this,
Round 1.
this, and this.
Fight!
So that's the whole breakdown. I know that very few people learned anything over the past few minutes, so hopefully this segment can make up for that. Here are the chords in the introduction. I pitched up the opening sample so it would function as the 5 of the following chord. The next 4 chords are 1 minor, 1 diminished 7 in the third inversion, 4 minor 7 in the first inversion, and the last 2 chords function as a 2-5 of B minor. Let's move on to the A section. This chord progression is a variant of the 2-5-1-6. The first chord is a 2 minor 9, but instead of using the 5, the next chord is a flat 2 minor 7. This chord is strange because it does resolve to the 1 major 9 that follows it, but since the flat 2 minor 7 contains no tritone, the resolve does not feel as strong as if I used a 5 dominant 7 or even a flat 2 dominant 7. The final chord is a 6-7, sharp 9, sharp 5, which points back to the 2 chord. The B section is pretty simple from a chordal standpoint, but I would like to look at how I use this section to change keys. The chords here are B minor 9, C sharp minor 7, D6, and G6-9. I'm trying to use these chords to pivot to the relative major of the parallel minor. The last chord is almost diatonic in A major, but also functions as the 5 of C major, which is the 1 major chord of the A prime section. But since the first chord of this A prime section, D minor 9, is not the 1 chord, this creates a deceptive cadence. The A prime section is similar theoretically to the A section, but I do want to analyze one lick of the synth solo. You may notice that some of the notes under the C sharp minor 7 do not fit within the chord, and some of the notes do not fit into the key of C major. So what's going on here? In this progression, the flat 2 minor 7 chord is a tension chord, and the 1 major 9 chord is the release. When soloing over a tension chord, any note works as long as the phrase ends on a good note. This is why I don't care that some of the notes in the lick do not fit with the chord, and that others do not fit with the key. Since I was partially responsible for ruining the beat battle on July 19th, I feel like I am responsible for attempting to help solve voting problems for future beat battles. I've always viewed the placements before judging as seedings, and I've compared judging to the playoff system that exists in many sports, since any person that is judged has a chance of winning, just like how bottom seeds in a tournament can win as well. If the judging phase is like the playoffs, then the voting phase is like the regular season. How do we emulate a regular season using voters? I would like to credit EdBoy484 for proposing this idea in the YouTube comment section of the Flicko video of this battle. My purpose is to elaborate on their idea and expose it to a wider audience. Essentially, EdBoy is saying that beats should be placed in pairs and voters should pick their favorite beat out of the two. I would add that after the voting period, the numbers of wins and losses should be tallied for each beat and win ratio should be calculated. Participants are then ranked by win ratio, which prevents problems regarding one beat receiving more matchups than another due to randomness. Under this system, win ratio corresponds with percentile, meaning that a median beat would win about 50% of its matchups, and a 50% win ratio would place the beat in the middle of the leaderboard. This is a much better system than the one we currently have, and I'll explain why. One reply counters that this system is no better because in a situation where both beats are trash, one will receive a vote regardless. I assure you that this is not a problem, at least not theoretically. To prove this, let's take a look at this question. What is the probability that a beat in the 60th percentile places in the top 10 out of 250 participants? The top 10 out of 250 would be the top 4%, or the 96th percentile and above. Let's say that this beat goes through 25 matchups. If the beat is in the 60th percentile, that means that it is better than 60% of other submissions, so it has a 60% chance of winning a matchup against a randomly chosen beat. In order to place in the 96th percentile or above, the beat would likely have to win at least 96% of its matchups, either going 24-1 or 25-0. Here's how we calculate the probability of these outcomes. The probability of 25 wins would be the probability of winning any random matchup, 60%, times itself 25 times. The probability of 24 wins would be the probability of winning any random matchup 24 times, multiplied by the probability of losing once, times the number of permutations that a 24-1 record can occur. How do we find the number of permutations? Luckily, we can brute force the answer to this question. On the right, we can figure out that there are 25 ways to go 24-1. As you can see, a mid-tier beat like the one in the question only has about a 0.005% chance of making it into the top 10. The main benefit of using the head-to-head system is that it helps to prevent beats from moving into tiers that it should not be in. Basically, voters may have to vote for trash from time to time, but since every beat is subjected to so many matchups, its win ratio will likely gravitate towards its true percentile. This concept is called the law of large numbers. This law is slightly different from the law of averages because the law of averages is a belief that is not rooted in probability. The head-to-head system also prevents voter apathy from harming the top beats in the battle. In our current system, an apathetic voter who only listens to 30 beats may miss the best beat of the week that's on the next page. Because of this voter's apathy, this top beat receives one less vote than it should have, which could make a difference. However, in the head-to-head system, a voter who does not hear enough beats does little to no harm to a beat that was not encountered. This is because if the beat was truly the best of the week, it should have a 100% win ratio. So if the apathetic voter does not reach this beat, the ratio is preserved. I believe that under a head-to-head system, there should be a minimum voting requirement as well as a limit on both the number of votes and the number of submissions that can be seen by one person. This would allow for two major benefits. The first is that while everyone has equal voting rights, the voter retains the right to choose how many votes to cast, given that this value is between the minimum and the maximum. One of the main problems with the current voting process is that a voter who listens to 20 beats and one who listens to 200 both vote 5 times. This results in a varying quality of the voted beats between the two voters. Let's say that the minimum number of votes to be cast is 10 and the maximum number is 50. A high maximum allows for more votes, which can make for more accurate results, but obviously these numbers could be redefined by others if this idea gains traction. An apathetic voter can listen to 20 beats while choosing their favorite of each pair, while a more active voter could listen to up to 100 beats. This system gives every voter an equal opportunity but rewards active voters, and since both types of voters are voting for 50% of the beats they hear, the average quality of the voted beats is the same between the voters.
Too many people got friends, bro. That's what it is. They got friends fucking voting for them.
That's one thing I haven't addressed yet. Did I have friends boost me? No, I have no friends. But that leads me to the second advantage of this head-to-head voting system. Having an upper limit on the number of submissions shown to each person can help to prevent people from boosting their friends. If a person is looking for their friend but cannot find them because a large number of submissions are not shown to them, they will not be able to vote for their friend. To reiterate, this proposed voting system is better than our current one because it keeps mid-tier beats near the middle of the leaderboard, protects the best beats from voter apathy, rewards active voters while giving equal opportunity for all voters, and prevents friend boosting. Throughout this video, I answered various questions, but now it is time for me to ask the viewers about some things. How do I collab with Fees? I know that this might be a reach to request for since he is so much more experienced than I am, but I feel that we could still make good music together. My second question is, what types of videos would you like me to make in the future? I was thinking about making videos about a video game in development that I am a sound designer for, but I'm not sure if I can make too many videos during the school year. But in future videos, I do hope to have more energy than I do right now. And finally, does anyone have any advice or further questions for me? If you have a question, please ask it in the comments, and I will try my best to answer it. Also, I will be putting my transcriptions of certain tracks from the A Short Hike OST in the description, so if you would like, you can download it. All I ask for in return is that if you enjoyed my video at all, or if you downloaded my transcriptions, please subscribe to my channel. I hope to see you guys sometime in the future, and I hope that I can make our already great community an even better place.